You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, back for another Locked On Texas Tech special edition. It's Big 12 weekly time as we take a glance around the conference and beyond to get into a couple of topics, Chris, that spanned well beyond the confines of the 806. One of those that seems to never die is future conference shuffling. Now, would still encourage you to keep August 15th circled on your calendar as it relates to any potential ACC news, as we have told you on this program before. But we're actually going to look westward to kick off our conversation here today, because it seems like recently there's been some smoke rolling regarding the Beavers of Oregon State, the Cougars of Washington State. Of course, if I'm operating in either one of those locales, well, I'm blowing smoke every day, year round, just trying to get somebody to look my way. So I'm wondering, Chris, is this something to buy into, some of the reporting that there's some finagling happening between the leagues, that being the Pac-2 and the Big 12, and possibly some television networks? Or is it maybe those two out west just trying to generate some conversation that could lead to possible finagling? What do you think?
Well, like in the last week to 10 days, there's been some rumors out there about it, and it was – I don't know where that part really started, but there were some reputable folks kind of discussing, hey, man, there's some chatter going on here and all that. And I think because open for business, okay, these two, these two schools will definitely have an interest. Now, at first glance, I'm thinking like, why are you talking about adding them now? Because you could have added them when you wanted to. Like, what has changed, or has it? Because you had 12 months to decide that you wanted to take them on. And again, so I'm clear here, it doesn't make any sense from a TV standpoint. It doesn't make any sense for Fox and ESPN. I don't think it necessarily makes sense for travel and all the other things too, or competitive balance or whatever you're looking at. So I don't think that was happening. When I kind of saw these rumors, I'm like, this doesn't jive. What I think got lost in translation, and I'll give credit to John Wilner, who has been all over the West Coast, realignment and all those things. He was able to vet it out. And so I think there was some truth to what was being discussed, but it's not addition of conference members. What I think was ultimately being discussed, and it's funny because Texas Tech is really already doing this. I think there is a conversation that is ongoing. I don't know what this looks like, but theoretically the Red Raiders are already knee deep and involved anyways. But it's a schedule alliance that Washington State and Oregon State may in fact try to get involved with the Big 12. Is that certain sports, just one sport, all sports? What does that look like? And do they come up with anything substantial? I think that would behoove, really. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of opportunities for Big 12 teams that need games in a variety of sports. There is some, maybe for some of the new additions, it may make more sense geographically, scheduling wise to make sense. But I mean, let's just talk about this. You're playing Washington State this year. The return game is, I think, in 32, which is a long ways away. It feels like it may change, but you have a home and home with Oregon State in football starting next year. I mean, the Oregon State Beavers will be in Lubbock, Texas next year. And then you make the return trip to Corvallis the year after in 2026. So I just, basically the next, what is that, like 8 or 9 seasons, you're going to have 4 football games against these guys in the non-conference, a couple of home and homes. So I just don't know what all that looks like. But I in no way think that they are being considered as members. The only way that I think that they catch a break is if, and this may even be a stretch, but if the ACC just blows up, and everybody is starting to like, okay, we're going to 3 leagues. They're going to be about 20 each, ish. maybe they have a place to land then. But even then, I just don't know. Because at that point, I think you would be much more interested in ACC schools as opposed to these two that are just – they're just so far out there. And I'm curious to see what this Pullman trip looks like for us. Am I in Canada? How far out there and remote really is it? Because I felt like Laramie was kind of that way, and you're not talking about University of Wyoming being added to any of these things, and that's just I'm sure it's beautiful. It's probably a great place to play and coach, and Mike Leach loved it from the remoteness of it. I feel like I'm out here in the Washington version of Key West, but it just for the TV folks are not interested in remote unless it's a controller. They want somebody with population that people follow and are going to watch and are interested in and all those things. And Oregon State and Washington State, they just don't check those boxes.
I mean, average attendance, stadium size, alumni base, all those things, regardless of the location. You think about the fervor around those programs. And I don't see any addition necessarily like you would, even looking to the ACC and thinking about like a third, fourth, fifth, or sixth option from the ACC behind Florida State and Clemson, still representing a much larger punch as far as athletic fervor around those programs like your Louisville or whoever it might be, North Carolina State, whatever example you want to use, Virginia Tech, as compared to those in Corvallis or Pullman. But, hey, never say never. And obviously, if the deal is right, hey, fellas, how you feel about an SMU deal? We'll give you nothing and you'll like it. Judge Schmel's deal. Then maybe there's a conversation to be had. But, I think we'll continue to see these types of things show up sort of in the media, and it may be more like podcast media or something like that, just because it's sort of the Jimmy Sexton approach. Like, we're just going to float all kinds of stuff out there and see if maybe it makes us any money at the end of the day. And it's one of their best hopes, so certainly understand that. Before we get out of here, Chris, let's wrap up the conversation with something from a Big 12 perspective that will not be unique to the Big 12. This, I guess, has begun, correct me if I'm wrong, sort of has begun as an SEC type of snowball as it relates to required or mandatory injury reports as we get into the football season. And I'm wondering how you feel about this, possibility for the conference at large. And do you have any feel for more locally how Texas Tech leadership would feel about it, or how Joey McGuire would feel about it? What do you make of this story in general? First, today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Never sweat buying tickets to your favorite event again with Gametime. It's always a breeze using the Gametime app, where you're going to find the best last-minute deals, and I love being able to scout out a view from any seat before pulling the trigger. And of course, you're always doing it at the lowest price guaranteed. Gametime has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event and even an hour after it begins, which means you can finish off that final brat, that final beer at your own pace at the tailgate, because Gametime is the place to find last-minute seats to any event. Gametime gives you the fastest and easiest way to buy tickets, but not just fast, also secure and simple to use. So right now, download the Gametime app and create an account and use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today for last-minute tickets at the lowest price, guaranteed. Do you have any feel for more locally how Texas Tech leadership would feel about it, or how Joey McGuire would feel about it? What do you make of this story in general?
He has brought this up to me before, when I think the Big Ten started talking about it. I think he's brought it up in like some of his press conferences and things like that before too.
Talking about Coach McGuire?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think he's very much for it. The gamesmanship that goes on at times is kind of, some are more into it than others. We're going to suit this guy up. We know he's not playing. We're going to suit him up, let him go through warm-ups, kind of wink, wink. Are you really throwing anybody off? I have no idea. And typically what happens with football programs is that they have members of their staff, like, the quality controls and the GAs and stuff, will be on the opposite sideline during football warmups and they'll go through a roster and they check off every number. And like when they don't see a certain number or with a position group, it's like, okay, they just want to know. And I
really,
I,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, just for internal purposes and what they've prepared for and planned for and all those things. And inevitably there's life that gets in the way too. There's like, didn't know anything about so-and-so, but yeah, he's got the flu or, whatever, or he didn't make the trip. Somebody in his family, there's an unfortunate situation. There's just all these things.
Always something like that. It seems like week to week that
yes,
you just don't. You pregame, you're like, well, this guy didn't make the trip, and you're saying, huh?
and you have no idea, until you do. I would the SEC's talking about it from a gambling standpoint. They're trying to just make it fair. Okay, in theory, I'm all for this. I wish that everybody just was like, put their cards on the table. You're not tricking anybody. I just don't know how much practice time or how much advantage or disadvantage you're really getting when you like, oh, so-and-so's not in uniform today, or damn, he's going to play today. Like Boobie Miles, he ain't going to play. When that Roy Williams, the UT receiver, the Midland, whatever, I think that was his line in that movie. He ain't gonna play. I wish that everybody just put their cards on the table. It's just less stress and a lot easier on all parties, like the way the NFL teams do it. Now, I think if you do the injury report, here's the thing. Does everybody abide by it? And then what do you do to a coach when he just is like, screw you, man, I'm not going to lay my cards on the table. I'm keeping them, close to the vest. Yeah, because somebody will. And it's funny that the SEC is the league we're talking about, because somebody they're just not going to be like, dude, I'm not doing that because so-and-so doesn't do it. And then in the way it goes. But I really wish, heck, for my own sanity, because inevitably, if you find out about an injured player at Texas Tech on a Friday, afternoon or whatever, if it shows up and it's like people are aware that I know about it, if it shows up on a site like RedRaidersports.com, keep in mind there's players walking around campus with a boot on or in a cast, or so many people know about these things, but then if it ends up on a message board, it's like, I hate it because it's like people are automatically looking at me and I haven't told a soul, and you just feel like, dude, but you can't keep secrets. You can't, it's just hard to like play that game and like keep everything like everybody wants it for every program. And so I wish personally that, and again, I think Joey truly feels this way, but he only feels this way because I think I remember him saying this along these lines, as long as everybody was going to abide by the same set of rules. So that's where you get into the gray area, or you may have a rub. And then what can I do to it? If I'm in the league, can I fine the coach if he didn't, because I mean, NFL, it's like, hey, so-and-so practiced today. And Joey's pretty transparent. He tells more injury information. Yeah. Heck, it's written about more now than ever before. And back when Mike was around, he's like, we don't have injuries here. I don't know what you're talking about. Right. They don't exist. Like, next question. Yeah.
I love it. I just kind of like the entertainment value of that approach. Sure. Yeah, I think Coach McGuire has really, he doesn't seem afraid to speak on any subject for the most part. And I'm sure there's some things he keeps to himself. But from an injury standpoint, I do feel like he's been more than willing to engage. I mean, there have been times, and I don't know, maybe it's his regular routine, but he's led off his press conference with, here's our injury report, it seems like, or here's an update on this guy or that guy, and has gotten well into those types of conversations. And I don't know, I know the Big 12 or a college conference has got some enforcement mechanism or something like that, but it's not exactly like the NFL league office, right? Where you're like, hey, we're slapping this, big fine on you, or we're going to do this. Even though that happens to a degree as far as the language is concerned, it seems like there's a little bit more of a gray area between a campus and a conference office. So we'll see. And from a gambling standpoint, it's interesting that that's a factor in the conversation, because that's only going to continue to get larger and larger and larger as far as that participation. So maybe that means it's inevitable that we'll get to this kind of thing.
And what you get into, and what you may start to get into even more of, is, keep in mind, Big 12 Media Days in Vegas, more and more of these leagues are starting to say, well, let's cut league-wide deals with, FanDuel.
Yeah.
Like the some of the agreements that, like, Locked On has and everything, where you get into some of that space. And so it just makes sense. Cards on the table. I mean, I hope that gets some legs, and this is where this thing goes, because it would just alleviate a lot of confusion. And I think that, the NFL is king. They do it. You can figure it out, and they're in that gambling space. So I don't see why, college coaches, specifically like the Power 4 leagues and things like that, can police it, monitor it, and all those things. I hope that we get to this point.
Be something interesting to keep an eye on as we move forward. Chris, appreciate some extra time on the weekend. Enjoyed the conversation as always, man, and we'll see you on Monday.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. We will do that and look forward to it, and keep hope alive, everybody.
Get subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And, of course, the best way to help us grow the show is to comment anything below, so go on and do that. Thanks to those who do that regularly. For Chris, I'm Casey. Appreciate you being out there, and hope to see you back for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.